expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJS, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. You are listening to Ability Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Amelia Headley-Lamont of the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And today we are very privileged to have a woman who wears many hats. And today we're going to talk about all these skill sets that she has. Her name is Yvonne Peterson. Good day, Yvonne. How are you?
I'm fine. And you?
I'm doing very well. And I'm very happy that you've decided to tell us about your exploits over your many years of nonprofit management work. First of all, I want to let the audience know that you are, as I understand it, presently the executive director of Beyond Visions Foundation, where you bring to the territory decades of experience in the nonprofit world as a management, governance, and development. You are very experienced in grant writing, which is not something I particularly enjoyed. So you are prized for that alone, I think.
And I don't like to do it either, but there's something got to be done, right?
Right. It's something that's got to be done. And what's very exciting to me is that you're going to share with us today your work in that regard to train us, to train, nonprofit people, parents, families, whatever, to how to go about doing grant applications. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll continue on with your work.
Yes, Yvonne Peterson. I'm born and raised in the Virgin Islands, and I consider myself a territorial Virgin Islander because I actually lived in St. Croix for 24 years. It was supposed to be 2 years and ended up being 24. And so I have been doing grant review, for example, on the federal level, beginning with the Bush administration, doing the we call it the Compassion Capital Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it wasn't electronically; it was on paper.
Right.
And I did that, and also worked under the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, and under initially the first Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was doing work in different programs, both programs for administration for community families and children, as well as those has to do with environmental,
Mm-hmm.
with EPA and others. And it depended on what the grant is, you would be working on those for states and also those for the territories.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very interested because when in grant writing and grant reviewing, you work with various people from different parts of the country who come with different ideas or different philosophies, and we had to work together to make decisions on who would be funding. So it was very interesting doing that kind of work throughout those years. I also been a grant trainer for American Grant Writers Association
Mm-hmm.
for 3 years, and that include working with different organizations and helping them increase their ability to go after funding. One good example was working with the West Palm Beach. Based on my training with them, they were able to write the 10-year plan for the homeless.
Ah, excellent.
So, that was very rewarding.
Right.
Also, I was part of a specific group, myself and my co-partner, Vienna Kodra. We were part of a program through the Early Childhood Personnel Center. We worked, I think it was about 5 years, working on improving parts of the Disability Education Act, which is a federal law called the IDEA, which has to do with special education for eligible children with disabilities. And that way we're able to work with them on this level to look at how we can look at policies regarding procedures to improve special education, not only for the states, but also for the territories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting, very intensive.
Yes, I'm sure.
But it was very important.
Even being asked to be part of a review panel is pretty remarkable in the sense that, that here's an entity that has the whole country that they could look to. And for you to be part of that, group of individuals is quite a feat and certainly commendable,
Yeah.
and to do it for so many years under so many administrations, so you're able to look at things and say, okay, this was different, different approaches, different missions, different, whatnot. So where I think it would be helpful is if you have any suggestions to somebody who may at some point want to apply for a grant, what are some things just generally they need to look at or be mindful of?
Yes. One of the things we have to look at is, first of all, the nonprofits or foundations who are funding, they're not funding your program, they're funding their interest. And
Right.
so it's always about them.
Right.
And I think that's the first thing people need to know. And on that level,
Mm-hmm.
for example, this year, I've been doing for several years now. I've been reviewing a Pacific Foundation grant. They give up over 1.5 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And this past year, we had 3,000 applications.
Oh my goodness.
3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Only 9 was funded.
Wow.
And what it means is that we call it chasing money. In other words, what you want to do as a nonprofit is look to see how your goals and objectives are aligned with the funders,
Mm-hmm.
because the funder is funding what they want, not what you want, what you
Right.
need.
Right.
And what's important, I think, is to make sure that you have I call it the stepping stone. This is your vision. This is your mission. This is your goals. These are your objectives. This is how you implement them, how you evaluate them. And it becomes like a full circle. It's
Mm-hmm.
continuous circle. And I think that is the most important thing, is to actually step back and put together who you are, what you're about, and making sure that the things you do are in line with your mission-driven statements. And I find that's something that a lot of nonprofits don't really do,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes a difference in being able to get funding, particularly now when this more is more competitive and it's more limited in the
Right.
abilities. And what's happening too is working on with foundations. They don't just fund 1 year. I mean, they just fund years before, but they're looking for long-term relationships.
Hmm.
So the more you're in line with what they're about, the more you can increase your ability to get funding.
Right. Right. So again, you've worked not only with respect to federal funds, but also with foundations, entities,
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very key and important thing. We talked previously about your work, with family voices and families and coalition with, organizations such as Disability Rights and University Center for Excellence and the Developmental Disabilities Council. And one of the things you talked about, which was very intriguing to me, was you went to a conference and worked with a couple of doctors, I believe, that went around the world to try to find the world's, smartest students. Okay, whatever that means. But you said that you came away from that learning a few things. Can you share that with us?
Yes, it was called part of Early Childhood Personal Center, and had a grant for the Division of Early Childhood
Mm-hmm.
on Council for Exceptional Children, and the couple was called Mr. Wood and his wife. I think her name was Anne Turnbull.
Mm-hmm.
And at the conference, they was our keynote speaker,
Okay.
and they talked about this study they had to do throughout the world to find the brightest kids, the smartest kids in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being Finland.
Hmm.
And what was interesting, because they used the program, which was, the federal program.
Mm-hmm.
And from that program, they kind of copied, how it works in giving their students
Mm-hmm.
that. And what I mean is the special education, the ability of education, federal law, and the difference was all students in their schools received an IEP,
Okay.
and it was individual for their needs. So it didn't matter whether or not they had academic issues or whether or not they had social issues. Everyone received an IEP, and I think that was the cornerstone, what makes them different. Additionally, from my recollection, they allow this in Finland for the children to develop their social skills. They don't have homework. It how they did the schooling made it more interesting in being learning, want to be a learning atmosphere, and that's kind of made the difference for them. And I think he was very instrumental in that. I call him, name was Dr. Rod Turnbull, because he had a child that had autism
Mm-hmm.
and other intellectual disabilities. So he had a very interest in it. And he was very much involved with the whole area of Individual with Disability Act. He was one of the co-draftsmen from it. In fact, in recollection, he was involved with developing the special education program for North Carolina.
Okay.
And so when we went to these, every year we go to this intensive training, and when they were involved with it, we were actually in Connecticut. We spent several days up there in the cold, and and we only focused on the special education program, specifically the SMART component, which is specific, measurable, attainable, oriented, and timely
Okay. Well, let me
to
let me
improve that.
let me go back to this Finland example in which we said that
Okay.
the students, every student, unlike students here in the territories or in the U.S., every student has what we would call an IEP, which means an individual educational plan. So every
Right.
student had one. And what you also mentioned was that there was no homework. That would get everyone thinking, what do you mean, no homework? No homework. And that the students started school a little bit later than students in the States, like 6 or 7 years of age. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think around 6 or 7 years of age, but right. And
Okay.
also, I think from my recollection was they want to develop their social skills first. That's what my recollection.
Okay. And that's
Yeah.
important. Right. So that in essence, I guess, created a better environment for learning, to develop social skills, to have a plan. Each student have a specific plan. What's in a plan, in a sample individual educational plan?
Well, I would say the academics segment would also be the social part of it,
Mm-hmm.
It would be I'm not they didn't get into it with us, but you think there's components for different parts of our IEP, not just educational, but that's
Right.
social development, and those components I think what is important.
Right. And any
know?
kind of
And the
right.
transitional, we move from one level to the next, as well as behavioral. I would say that those things would be part of the component.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important is because when we talk about the IEPs, we have to think about as each child, student transition from, from elementary to secondary.
Mm-hmm.
It's a transition, and that's important to make sure that transition is really in place.
Right, right. Do you know up to what grade the students go in Finland as far as secondary school? Any idea?
I think it's a high school. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
would say 12th grade. I'm not sure, but I would
Okay.
say 12th grade.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are things that we can look at and see how we can build upon or improve upon. Let's talk about your work with Beyond Visions. I note that you're supporting those who are hurting, is what I have here in some notes. Concrete actions. Tell us about Beyond Visions and your work with that foundation.
Okay. Well, Beyond Vision actually started 28 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the best kept secret. Best kept secret.
Uh-huh.
We pretty did a low profile. This started where myself and a colleague of mine called Miss Maxine Fredericks,
Mm-hmm.
and she was looking for a grant to do specific works in training. So we sat down and wrote the grant. We got the grant, and we implemented the program. And then she said, let's start a foundation, a nonprofit." And I said, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
And so we got together. We had seven other people involved who we knew, and we did an assessment for the whole territory. Actually, got everybody together, and we looked at what's happening in the Virgin Islands and did an assessment of the social, academics, and all those things. And we spent a whole day looking at that, and we came up, what we want to do? Let's think about being proactive. Let's think visions beyond. I said, well, what about the name Beyond Visions? And that's what we came up with that name.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we actually did, we had Claudia Young Hines did an actual SWOT analysis with us, sat us down, and spent actually working at what we're about, Common Missions vision. And after that, we sent that information out to people that we knew to see exactly what they thought about it. And we met again to kind of hone in on what the vision and mission was.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, one person came back to us, was our lawyer, of course, and said, "What does this mean?"
Mm-hmm.
And we came up. We spent about 2 hours working on this one part of the mission, people of diverse cultures to help themselves, which of course not the best thing to say these days,
Mm-hmm.
but we went through the process
Mm-hmm.
that was needed to be, and as we've been around, so we've worked with other organizations, both here on the mainland. We worked with the American Grant Writers Association for several years, did training with them. We worked with the EPA
Mm-hmm.
in reference to things on the Virgin Islands. So we've been involved with things on the behind the scene,
Okay. Well,
behind the scene.
there's something that I saw online, and I'm not sure if these are still activities that you engage in. So I'm going to tick them off, and you could say yes,
Okay.
no, yes, no. Okay. One of the things that was mentioned about Beyond Visions, and that your organization would serve as a fiscal agent.
Well, right. Right now, we actually been working on that in reference to we do have what you call a fund accounting system,
Mm-hmm.
which is MIP, one
Mm-hmm.
of the top, I would say one of the top systems in the world. And it's not like QuickBooks or Peachtree, it's actually fund accounting, which can manage funds for the 5 years.
Okay.
And we're moving towards, and in fact, I had a grant from in Department of Interior
Mm-hmm.
in office to start building the nonprofit in the territory, building up that structure.
Mm-hmm.
We apply to take it further now to actually get organization here to be able to use MIP
Mm-hmm.
like that. So we are looking at that's one thing we're looking at. We also got funding to develop our own data system,
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
collecting evaluation data. In fact, interested today, I just got an email from the Administration for Community for Children and Families at federal level. They
Mm-hmm.
want to uh, us to consider reviewing one of our programs as a test for evaluation.
Oh.
This happened just this morning.
Uh-huh.
So that was interesting. So I wrote back to them, say we're interested in that. So yes, we're looking at evaluation. We have worked with the DD suite, which is by the Minnesota, is a data system also for grant writing and grant development.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually putting components in place, and this is based on a FEMA reaching out to Beyond Visions in order to help us build the local capacity of local nonprofits so they can get funding from not only in the territory but outside. They're more competitive.
That's
So
good.
yes, we've been working on those parts of the component of it.
Okay.
Oh,
Are you
wait,
still
yeah.
providing assistance to nonprofits for filing for tax exempt status?
Yes, we did the 990s. And I know that's a challenge because we have a challenge ourselves now that it's hard to find, I'm sorry, but it's hard to find people to work. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a challenge now, and it's just here, it's everywhere.
Right.
So yes, in fact, we're hoping to start, we're now mostly in Niski Center,
Mm-hmm.
in the Niski Commons area in St. Thomas. And there's a training center upstairs that we've been able to outfit with a projector screen and the whole works in working with the landlord of the Niski Center, and we want to start doing capacity building training for nonprofits upstairs, piece by piece, to kind of break it down so they can understand all the components of going after federal, but also foundation grants, what they're looking for, and that's what we're working on right now.
That would be very, very important, especially, well, at any time, but even now. I mean, does Beyond Visions also assist with funding research, knowing where to go or how to best find a source that aligns with your mission as an organization?
Yeah, one of the things we're going to be doing also is developing a database that has, the various foundations
Mm-hmm.
that get funding, and
Mm-hmm.
those areas. And going back again is that it's really the real focus is actually having your vision, mission, and your goals and objectives in place, and then aligning them with the grant foundation that provide that funding.
Right.
And recognizing that most foundations don't give outside the state or the area.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, that's important. And I was to the philanthropy conference last year where most of the major small foundations attended, 600 of them. And one of the biggest keynote speakers was talking about in the new era now,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be more of a challenge because is a lot of funding is going to be pushed or expected from the foundations, which means foundations are going to also have more organizations seeking funding from them
Right.
as the federal funds are going to be less available.
True. We have
So it's
about
going to be more competitive.
right.
So it'll be more important to be ready for that. But also, what they're looking for also is collaboration. They feel like nonprofits need to start working together,
Mm-hmm.
like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Just as how we are, we have the Beyond Vision for the Family Health Formation Center. We got Family Voices. We have Disability Rights Center. We have via USAID, and so the Diddy Coalition. They work as a coalition, and that's going to be something that would drive more revenues or a
Right.
possibility of funding because you're not working like a silo. You're
Right.
working as a team,
Right.
and that's important.
Well, which brings me to this training that you were talking about or had mentioned, this training for parents and nonprofit training for organizations with respect to the individual education plan or IEP. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
With the IEP training.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. What we're looking at is we're trying to see how we can work with our organizations, like with the VADD Coalition, in order to provide training through the Family Voices program in order to improve the outcome of parents. And we can't do it on our own. So we're looking to see how we can train other nonprofits in the territory that can provide support,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's activities or it can provide other things like that. One of the things I think is important when you're looking at is under this new administration, you have to look at the benefits of it. I'm finding that the grants larger. Let's say, for example, there's one grant think we are looking at doing is called Ready for Life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a grant that comes out. It just came out about a month ago, but it's only for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You can't write a grant like that in 2 weeks.
Right.
But what we wanted to do is actually take that grant, Ready for Life,
Mm-hmm.
and actually do grant training on that grant specifically. And that way we can find ways that where by helping these nonprofits, they can be a part of the program to actually help parents who are children with special health needs as they can be part of that cohort of mini grantees to get that funding. And we want to focus on Family Voices on that component. Family Voices is a program that's a national program. And luckily, in talking to one of my project officers, supervisor, we had no cuts because it's a mandated program, and so far it hasn't been cut or any way compromised, and that allows us to say, look, we have the fund, we don't have to worry about it. We can provide that training for nonprofits who want to be able to help the organizations and the children and families that we provide support for. So we'll use it as a pilot program.
Good. What's the incentive for folks to enroll, to participate?
Well, the incentive is to get, first of all, training in how to actually go after grants, how to understand what they're looking for. To have a better understanding is to focus on our organization, whether it's federal government or foundation, that would more than likely increase your chance for grant success. That's number one. Number two, understanding how to improve your organization from goals, objectives, because you have to really align on that. We can give you the training from the funder component, funder segment, how it makes a difference and what they're looking for and how to align yourself in it. And understanding how grants is actually evaluated. It's a point system. And with reviewing grants for all these years is that it actually breaks down every single part of the grant from the introduction to the implementation to the evaluation, point by point. And if you understand how the point system works and how they evaluate it and what is a component component, it's going to help you write a much more successful grant.
Okay. Well, we only have about a minute left.
Okay.
If somebody wants to know more about your work and how to, be part of an activity so they can learn to, garner funding and be more astute at at doing that, how will they go about reaching you or your organization?
Well, they can reach us. We're here in St. Thomas at the Niski Center.
Mm-hmm.
We have the phone number is 714-2830. I work in St. Thomas. We also have my co-partner in St. Croix, Vienna Kodra. She works with as a partner in education.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be able to get in touch with us. We have, of course, the website. You can contact us through info at Beyond Visions Foundation. And also just get involved with being a volunteer. Right now, we're actually partnering with the VI Housing Authority. We did some training for their tenant council for the last several months, and we're actually focusing on right now working in Area Diaz in St. Croix to build their tenant council so they can be able to be trained to actually organize themselves, be more leaders, and actually go after funding and partner with Beyond Visions in efforts to doing programs in the housing communities. And that's what
Sounds
we
like a
can do. We
plan.
work with our
Yeah.
organizations who want to partner with us.
Thank you. Well, our guest today was Yvonne Peterson of Beyond Visions and a variety of other entities. Thank you so much for participating today. Audience, thank you for listening. We'll talk again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.